Hello, everyone. This is Renee from Renee Talks. And today I have Miss Deana Williams with me. Did I pronounce your name right? Deana?
No, it's Deana.
Deana, I'm going to say it again.
Okay.
Okay. Hello, everybody. This is Renee from Renee Talks. Today I have Miss Deana Williams with me. She's an author, life coach, motivational speaker, and a minister, among other things. How you doing, Deana?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm fine. I see that you're an author. Can you tell me a little bit about what you've read in your books?
Yes, well, I actually have written, I'm Amazon best-selling author of Get Moved, and that's an acronym from Mapping Out Victory Each Day. And the book basically subtitle is Self-Empowerment Through Self-Discovery. For so many people, we don't know our true identity. So this book is a 90-day journal, which has 12 weeks, which represents a season. To everything, there's a season that helps catapult you into your next season by focusing on you, your identity, who you are, whose you are, but not necessarily defined by the actions, things that you've had to deal with in life.
Okay. And you're a life coach.
Yes. I'm a certified, go ahead.
I was saying, and you're a life coach. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, I'm a certified emotional physical therapy life coach. And basically what that is I deal with anyone on different level, whether it's personal, whether it's professional. But if you have some identified behaviors, I help you to identify those root causes and then not only identify them, but deal with them, process them. You know, I always say that a friend loves you where you are, but a life coach loves you enough not to leave you where you are.
That's awesome. That's really powerful. I've been reading your motivational Facebook posts, and they're very inspiring, especially about when you encourage others not to give up on life and things of that nature. And let me also say thank you for coming to talk to me today and allow me to interview you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
And so you also work in the ministry as well?
Yes, I'm a licensed minister. I've been a licensed minister since 2014, and I work in the church. I work outside of the church, but at the same time, when you think in a physical sense, but we are the church. So my ministry is basically what ministry is seeing a need and meeting a need right where they are, where the people are, no matter what it is. So it could be, not necessarily just on Sundays in a building, not because you have a pastor or choir, but whenever you see a need. Sometimes it's on the street, sometimes it's just stopping and having a conversation with someone at your job, in the community. But basically, I've been a licensed minister, so my goal is to draw people to God, to help build the kingdom, and spread the gospel, but most importantly, be the hands and be the feet of God, show love, be love, because basically love conquers everything. And so when you are representing God and know who you are and whose you are, then you're light no matter where you are. So you don't necessarily, I would say, conform to what is, you be transformed, by the renewing of your mind and by the word. So basically, wherever I go, I'm there to be of use and be a willing vessel to God.
And I think that's a really important point. A lot of times we think of the church, we think of a building. So the church is definitely in us. And I think like through the pandemic, we're definitely seeing that now, especially as a lot of churches are closed and we're having online services and things of that nature. And I think it's awesome that you're giving yourself in so many different ways into the ministry and to help others. And I think if we all do that we'll have, of course, a better world and a much better place to live in, if we all try to do our part.
Most definitely. I totally agree. So,
because the Lord works through us, and so we have to definitely be willing to work. So I think that everything that you're doing, I think is awesome, and it motivates me. It motivates me, and it makes me want to do more as well.
Well, awesome.
Now I read some about your story. Can you go ahead and tell me a little bit about that? I know I read that you were adopted.
No, I was never legally adopted.
Adopted. Let me start over.
No.
I forgot adopted. Okay. I read a little bit about your story. And I saw that you lost your parents at an early age.
Yes.
You have a really awesome testimony. So I'm going to ask you to go ahead and just kind of share with us your testimony.
Okay. Well, I'm one of six. I'm the second of six. born in the Delta of West Helena in Arkansas, and my mom died from accidental gunshot wound when I just turned 6 in March. She died April 11, which was just so happened was Easter of 1977, and my father was robbed and murdered on Labor Day in 1982. So I lost both of my parents. By the time we were motherless and fatherless, my youngest sibling was 5 and the oldest was 13. So, well, she had just turned 5 when my mom died, the youngest. So we lived with my dad, and after my father was murdered, we ended up moving with an elderly brother. Well, he was our elder brother. And we lived with him for about a year, all 6 of us. So there were 4 of them, 2-income household, but we took them from middle class to poverty. You went from 4 kids to 10. So of course at that point, they had to make some tough decisions. The goal was to keep us all together. And so they had to ask for help, and that help didn't necessarily always come from the immediate family. It came from those people that said, I will be willing. And so we ended up splitting up. So we moved around quite a bit. I mean, there were times where we actually, someone said, hey, they have to go today, and we'd move in with them, and they'd say, oh, I can't do this after a week. I remember moving to Missouri for a day, just because when somebody said you got to go and somebody came to get us, they thought they were taking us somewhere locally, and they took us out of state, moved us out of state. And it took that maybe a day and a half for them to find where we were. And they said, we won't come today, we'll come tomorrow. So, a lot of people loved how they could, and they did the best that they could. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's always easy and that it's always perfect, And so in that, we moved around quite a bit. And in that's where I dealt with incest, I dealt with molestation, and eventually in high school, even dealing with rape, and later with domestic violence.
Man.
But God is so good, is what I will say. Life did not happen. For a long time, I thought life happened to me. Mm-hmm. And I was a victim. And I tell everybody, I would always tell you, my name is Deana, and this is my story. And when you realize that life doesn't necessarily, it does happen to you, but it doesn't happen necessarily to you as a victim mindset, but as a victor, that life happens for you. And when you realize that there's a shift that takes place, and you become empowered to be able to stand in your truth, stand in who you are, and stand in your purpose. And so I understand that life happened for me. And what does that mean? That means that it happened so that I can help other people. It happened so that I don't allow the next generations in my family to fall victim. It happened for me to be able to have a voice. And so I've decided to not only accept that, but make sure that I'm intentionally doing that every day, blood or not, helping people identify, what the signs look like. I help them to identify that, people tell you their children to stay away from strangers. It's not about the strangers. It's the people that say they love you. It's the people that can get close enough to you to get in your ear and whisper and say, if you tell, I'll do this or I'll do that. So once I realized and truly, and I continue to accept that life happened for me and not to me, then it allows me, to just be able to tell my story. And I tell people, you have to share it, because once you share it, you start to become free. The things that used to hold you bound you start to feel the release. You start to feel that the burdens are lighter. You feel like the weight is gone. And it doesn't take away what happened to you, but it allows you to see that you survived it. And so now I tell you, my name is Deana, and this is my song. I have a song in my spirit, a song in my heart.
That's great. That's awesome. So,
thank you.
What do you think? So I'm sorry, I drew a blank. I'm gonna edit this.
That's okay. That's okay.
So are you kind of like incorporating your ministry along with being a life coach, along with being an author? You kind of tying that all together?
Well, it is all tied together. It's funny you say that. When someone would invite me to do anything, whether it was to come speak to young girls or show up at the church, I always said, well, I would always be so nervous. And I'm like, well, who am I? Who do you want to show up? Do you want me to come as a minister? Do you want me to come as the life coach? Do you want me? And I was like, Deana, oh, you're going to show up. Oh, every aspect of me will show up. Now, I pray and always ask God, you know who's in the room. Use me. So decrease me and allow the Holy Spirit to fill me. And what I have to know is, and what we all have to know is, everybody is not in the same place on their walk with God or in their walk with spirituality or religion for that matter. So I can't always give you a scripture and say, hey, take this scripture, because if you don't know how to use the word, you've not studied the word, it's just a sentence that somebody else is giving you, somebody else, and you're going to say, well, that didn't help. I keep reaching out for help and I keep asking for help, but nobody's helping me. They keep giving me these scriptures. It's not until the word that is in you will change you and that you're able to apply the word. So you have to be able to know that word and use the word. But if I tell you that God is still a miracle worker and you're like, well, tell me a miracle, and I go in the Bible and I give you a parable or something, but it's something to say, hey, listen, I was motherless and fatherless. Like I've been through, I didn't have money. I didn't have food. I didn't have a place to stay. I've been raped. I'm the miracle. So when you can see me, you can talk to me, you can touch to me, then that's how you know that there is a God. That's how you said, well, and I tell you, he's not a respecter of person. So that means that if he did it for me, he'll do it for you. So I realize that even when you minister, it's not always going to be thus said the Lord, because that's why Jesus spoke in parables, because you got to know who you're speaking to so that they are able to hear what you have to say. So as a life coach, I may come and say, well, you know what, you're broken and you don't have a good self-esteem and you don't have a good self-worth. Well, I can tell you that. Well, you've heard that all your life. So how about I say, hey, I'm going to give you an assignment to do today. I need you to go home, draw 5 circles. And in that 5 circles, I want you to write down these 5 words. And then I want you to draw 2 lines to tell me, what do you want in your finances? What do you want your relationships to look like? What do you want your health to look like? Then you're doing the homework. I'm still doing the same thing. There's a need, and that's what ministry is. You're meeting a need. So all of it, to me, you're dealing with the whole person at all times, regardless of what they say they need. You're always going to deal with everything, because a lot of times I tell people it's the broken children become broken adults. So sometimes when we're talking to adults, we want to speak to, hey, me and my husband are not getting along. Well, let's talk about the little girl. What kind of relationship did she see between her mother and her father? So a lot of times we're having to go back and identify, what is that root cause? What happened that has affected every decision you've made in life? And once we get to that decision, okay, now let's identify. Now, how do you feel about that? How did that little girl feel about that? And then let's work from there. And a lot of us, my goal is to tell you, I need you to identify. But now that we've identified it, how do we forgive? Because once we forgive them, we have to forgive ourselves. And that's the road to becoming, to healing. And then we have to move forward. So that's the whole purpose even behind the book. It was about, healing, forgiving, and moving forward. And I needed to do that in so many areas of my life. And so I just felt like that was a gift. That was a mission that God set me out on, the name and everything. And it's just been my life and who I am. And so every day, that's my goal, is how can I help? Not necessarily somebody, but anybody that needs help, and just feel like that's what we're called to do.
Well, that's awesome. And I agree that forgiveness, sometimes we think forgiveness is letting the other person off the hook, but it's really letting us off the hook. It's really allowing us to prosper. And then a lot of times we don't forgive ourselves, because sometimes we'll, beat ourselves up and make things our fault that aren't actually our fault, especially, children. And so
right.
It's really powerful. What would you have to say to someone who's kind of dealing with that they were abused or molested as a child, and it kind of has them stagnated? Is there any advice that you would give to them?
Well, if it's a child that's dealing with it, or if it's an adult, I think that's the first thing,
Okay.
because if it's a child, and that child has revealed that to me, or just even having been that, I can see it a lot of times. So you don't necessarily have to say something to me. And a lot of times I will start the conversation about something else to open the conversation, because you've got to have trust. They've got to have trust in you, and you've got to show yourself trustworthy. And sometimes what that means is you can't even tell their parent. You can't tell anybody. You've got to get them to the place where they'll tell, because next time they won't tell you, and they won't tell you something important. And I've had that to happen. I've had young women who have been friends, children, or even I've had my siblings' children to tell me. And they said, well, the only reason why I told you is because you talk about it and you shared your story. Well, at the same time, they said, well, I can't tell my parent because I know how they'll react. So that was a hard decision because I wanted to go and tell their parent, but I couldn't because, for one, they trusted me to keep that secret. And so my goal is, how do I help you heal and how do I help you move forward? Because my goal is to get you where you tell your story, you tell your parent. And, you know, my quote that I live by and I share, that my own personal quote is, you cannot heal what you're unwilling to reveal. And that's for anyone. If it's an adult, it's something about me sometimes, no matter where I am. I've had someone as young as probably 9, and I've had some, that has told me, but I've had someone younger that I could look at the situation. But I also had someone that was 83 that shared with me. I've had people I work in long-term care. I've had people that never told anybody that came and told me. So they just said, I don't know why I'm telling you this, but I can tell you. But I tell people I'm just a lot of broken pieces put together, and every now and then one of those pieces fall off, but I just kind of glue it back on and keep moving forward. And I try to get them to see that, you know, those things that you have kept all this time, you know, it's the chatter in your head that says, you know what, you tell them it was your fault. If you I had a relative here recently, and I let her watch a video, and she says, so you didn't go back home? Where were you got raped? And I told her, she said, you didn't go back and tell them that you were raped? You get back and say this and you tell them? And I said, no. She said, well, I don't understand why. I said, because had I gone back, it was my fault. Everything was already my fault. So to go and say that it was my fault that I put myself on in this situation to be raped, is that, and I knew that's how it was going to come. But what I had to realize, it was never my fault. It's not, and that's what I also meant. It was never your fault. It was someone that had ill intentions when they did it to you. And unfortunately, that person probably was a victim themselves. A lot of times the people that hurt people are hurt people. And the people, they just repeat. They say they'll never do it, but they've thought on that for so long, it becomes a part of them. So it's a conscious effort. But I want people to know, and I've trained, you know, I've raised my daughter to know that, hey, this is a risk. This could happen. But I've raised her to be empowered enough to tell her that people don't get to treat you how they want to treat you. They have to treat you how you deserve to be treated. Now, in saying that, I also have to teach her to know what she deserves, because that's a two-part. If you don't know what you deserve, then you can't teach anyone how to treat you. And so therefore, you can be in any situation and no one gets to violate you, no one gets to wrong you, and no one gets to quieten your voice. So for me, you have a voice. You have not only a voice, you're comfortable with your voice, so always use it.
Wow. That's awesome. And that's really excellent advice. What do you do on THV11?
So I'm a contributor there. They started a show, which is a family morning show. It's kind of like The View, The Talk, but it's Little Rock's local show, and it's Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. And so I was invited to come in and be maybe a occasional guest as a life coach, and to help bring motivation in, because a lot of people stop watching the news because of the news that becomes so negative.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, what the Vine is, it's a family show. So they talk about a little bit about everything, things you can do with your children, things you can do as couples, but basically it's a family show. It's family friendly and it's fun and it's lighthearted. And so the goal is to just make sure that you start your day out on a good note. So after going and interviewing for the show, and they had actually, when I got the invite, they had actually been on my page, social media pages. They had watched every video that I had did, and they actually called me. The producer called and said, "Hey, we here have been stalking your pages. We just like what you do. We love who you are, and we wanted to invite you in." And so I went, and after the first interview, I got invited to do the inaugural show. And after doing that, she called me back and said, well, and before I was leaving, she said, would you be willing to come when we have certain things? I was like, sure, no problem. And by the time I got to work, she said, you know what? We want to know if you were. So I've been there on that show for over a year and a half now. And so I have a regular segment where I do Monday motivation. And I just try to give real life advice that's applicable, and I try to make sure that it's relevant. So Sundays we talk about things that having the hard conversations as of late, all the things that have gone on, and that's been the really good thing. They haven't catered and said, hey, it has to be all rainbows and butterflies. It's been real, but it's saying, how do you make your way through this pandemic? How do you deal with the spouse who's been laid off? How are you dealing with, even with your children? My daughter went to college her freshman year and had to come home early. And so I had to know how to parent her. And that meant that, hey, her life changed as well. So, hey, take note of that. And this is what you do. And just giving you like simple guidelines to make sure that you can have hard conversations. You can deal with anything that's going on currently, and just giving you steps that to live by and steps that hopefully you can share with someone. And there are things that sometimes minister back to me. They minister to the anchors, they help all of us, hopefully. And that's usually anything I do. I don't do it necessarily to be seen or to be heard, but to make a difference and to make an impact. That's my goal. And always know and trust that God is pleased with me and everything I do.
It's great. It's very inspirational.
Thank you.
I appreciate you for coming on here and sharing with us today your story and everything, and about all the work that you're doing. I think it's awesome. I keep saying awesome and phenomenal work, and that you're inspiring and you're helping many people. So,
thank
you so much. Because
you're welcome.
And thank you for being so transparent within sharing your story as well.
No, you're welcome.
So
I truly believe that transparency transforms. So, that's how we're all going to help everyone or someone in any situation. And that's the thing. We know that all of us have a story. God gets the glory, but my story will impact these 10. Your story will impact those 10. And so when we come to the place where we can be transparent, our lives are being transformed. So I always say that when you help other people heal, you continue to heal.
That's right. That's right. All right. Well, thank you for coming and talking to me today. Did you have any final words you want to say or anything?
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for thinking of me. I just want to say what you're doing is good as well. I know that, today we all want to do something to make a difference, but sometimes we fail to realize the difference that we're really making. And sometimes that difference manifests in other ways, not even the way that we intended. I always say it's not about the small picture that we think about. It's about a bigger picture. So I would just say, anybody that has gone through anything, be sure to share your story. But be sure that when you share your story, you're ready to share your story. But also know that sometimes when you share it, it's not gonna be at an opportune moment. Sometimes it's to help that person, because that's when that moment and divine intention was set. So just be willing to just go through when you feel that need to. I always say, when you feel the need and something keeps coming up and you keep trying to press it down, it's time to heal it. It's time to deal with it. So, my last words for you to say, I would always say to you and to anyone else, just to know that you cannot heal what you're unwilling to reveal.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Well, all right, everybody.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I enjoyed the interview. I really did. I enjoyed talking to you. You're very inspirational, motivational speaker, and just enjoyable to talk to.
Well, thank you very much. You have a good evening.
You too. Thank you, everybody. Can you hold on just 1 minute? I don't want you to go away.
Oh, you're fine.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And please like, share, and subscribe. And I'll talk to you next time. Bye.